It's actually been thought that due to the invention of the plow, it may have prevented us from going into another ice age. Because it jump-started climate.
So crazy.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
It's
insane.
The funnest of facts.
Yeah, it's a very fun fact.
From ALDA, this is the Protect Your Wild podcast, a show about founders, athletes, and influencers, and how their passion for the environment led to their actions and career paths today. I'm Colin Campbell, and this week we got a throwback interview for you with Brandon Welch, who is running the Colorado Carbon Fund. They allow individuals and businesses to offset their carbon footprint through different projects they got going on. Keep in mind, this was one of the first interviews that we did, so the audio quality is kind of shitty, but the content is still great, and you'll learn a lot this episode. Keep in mind, you should check out aldalifestyle.com for our blogs, and remember to subscribe if you want discounts on cool shit. But otherwise, I hope you enjoy.
Hey, how's it going today?
Good, sweet.
It goes well.
So, Colin, how do you know Brandon?
Yeah, I actually met him at this startup meetup. Was it?
Yeah, down at Niche. Mm-hmm. Or Niche, however
Niche.
People like to pronounce it nowadays.
Yeah, and I was, they had everybody kind of stand up and say oh, what you're doing entrepreneurially, and I kind of said what ALDA was, and then basically they're both doing environmental stuff, so we got talking after, and obviously had a bunch of stuff in common because of that, and just kind of hit it off from there, and he's been helping us with a lot of ideas and stuff, and as you see, Colorado Carbon Fund is on ALDA's site that people can, when you order, offset your purchase through that. So that's kind of how that came about.
Yeah, I think at that point, they had everyone do their introductions, and then they said, if you want to have an ask at the end, do so. And at that point, I was still looking for a job.
Oh, yeah.
Back in September at that meeting.
Okay.
And then I think you announced something about ALDA, and yeah, it was we just walked over and started talking.
Yeah.
That's how it started.
Boulder. That's Boulder,
yeah.
Having so many environmentally driven people here, I think, is obviously one of the great benefits of being in Colorado in general, but Boulder specifically, it's huge. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Even just something like a meetup. You don't find that in many other places, I find, where people are...
I never heard of it before.
50 people are going to just meet up and talk about
entrepreneurship.
Whatever. What even was the talk that night? Was it about...
I feel was it about office culture, maybe? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was. And how that can define an entire company. And right. And such. It's fascinating. I mean... Oddly enough, I've only been to 3 meetups since then. Even though every one I've met somebody that was a good, contact friend or whatever, and yet I'm still too lazy or whatever to get out there. It's weird. But yeah, so I guess tell us a little bit where are you from? How'd you get here? And what are you up to now?
So I'm from West Bridgewater, Massachusetts, which is just a small little farm town. And when I say small town, it's about 5,000 people. But what's strange about southeastern Massachusetts is it was developed, it's been developed for hundreds of years now. So every town just kind of seamlessly integrates into the next. So you can't tell whether you're in West Bridgewater or Brockton or Bridgewater or any of the other surrounding towns. And it's just kind of a hodgepodge of neighborhoods. Does
that have a lot of historic kind of buildings and stuff?
Not quite.
No?
You kind of got to go out of your way to find those.
Right.
There's some specific towns that have some Hingham. My uncle lives out there, and if they even want to paint their house, they have to ask for permission from the town itself. Yeah, because I think most of them have just been knocked down over time.
Right.
But yeah, from there, kind of grew up with not much to do, just hanging out with friends, trying to...
like Gainesville.
Yeah, it's probably very similar in a lot of ways. And then it was time to go to college, and I just applied all over the place.
Yeah.
Mostly in the Northeast. I was considering going west, but it was just a little too much money at the time.
Right.
Had gotten into UVM and a few other schools, but went to UVM for kind of the admitted students day. walked around for the day, and I just decided right there, I was like, this is the school that I'm going to, even though I had yet to hear from, Northeastern, BU, all of those big schools in the city and such. And really happy I made that decision, because that was kind of the shift from, I had always had a tendency to like the outdoors and support the environment and such. Right. But there was just that something inside me that made me want to go to UVM, just that like kind of urge that I had to go follow. So I went there, started studying mechanical engineering. Actually, I did that for a year and a half. So put myself through all the brutal classes,
the classes.
Physics 1, 2, up to Calc 3 and Thermo, and statics and all of those brutal classes. But decided I was not interested in crunching numbers for the rest of my life or digging into the weeds too much. I think I'm more of a generalist, more of an overarching like systems thinker in a way, rather than
big
being
picture
super
guy.
niche. More big picture. So I was just kind of at this point where I wanted to make a change, and I wasn't sure what that was. So I just, went on Google and started searching around different degrees and such. Yeah. And it kind of came between two totally different ends of the spectrum. I either wanted to go into economics or environmental science for some odd reason, and I decided to go with environmental science. And I was diving into it, and then I went on a big hike right after I had switched my major and before I had started the new major. just like officially switched it within the school. I went on hiked the Long Trail for 3 weeks. It took 23 days with
that's sick.
Yeah, with a few of my buddies from UVM, and just kind of fell in love with the earth and trees.
Was that kind of the defining moment there, or did you have any like things from your earlier childhood that kind of led to your environmental or being drawn to the environment?
So growing up, we'd always go and visit New Hampshire. My family and I go skiing, snowboarding, fishing, and then we had a cabin up there for quite a while. Just to, great way to go up there.
Get away from people, man.
Exactly. Yeah. Like one weekend a month or so. So it'd be nice to go up there and get outdoors. But I never really had a defining moment of sorts. It was always, I feel like it just slowly built itself up to then just being strong enough for me to switch my major to environmental science. And then going on that hike just really confirmed it all. Right. It's like I had that moment, and then I was starting in the environmental science degree, and that's where I got my motivation. I got my strength to, just push through and really delve into that degree, and, came out still not really knowing what I wanted to do, but I wanted to work.
Every college student's like, that I had a similar experience, I think, where, it was always a part of my life, but I didn't realize how big really until my moment was kind of like in high school, that I had my first environmental science class where I kind of realized like, all my childhood and stuff, I had the most fun when I was out in nature, and I loved it without realizing it. And then when it came time to do a real thing with your life, when you're in that moment trying to like figure out what you're going to study, what you're going to grow up to be, I was like, what do I want to have the most impact on? And having the environment there for my kids is basically like what it came down to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just something bigger than yourself.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that was largely like the reason I wanted to get out too. I just pictured my life. Like, did I want to be in an office on a computer constantly just trying to make up new designs, drafting blueprints, whatever it would be? Mm-hmm. Or could I be, outside, meeting people, just having that like different lifestyle? And that's definitely what I was aiming for. So just thinking of that long-term vision,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
What got me to shift. But really, really happy I made that decision for sure.
Absolutely. I think it's not only a noble path to go down, but for yourself, like a fulfilling one,
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I guess it is kind of noble in the sense that, knowing where the earth stands right now with climate change and the beliefs of certain groups of people.
More than we like, of course. More people than we like.
Mm-hmm. But that's, from what I've heard, mostly an American thing.
That's what's good, yeah.
In most other countries, it's just an undeniable fact, and you look like a fool if you don't believe in climate change.
That's so wild, man.
Yeah, at least in first world countries.
What is wrong with us? Avinash, I'm curious, did you have like, I guess before you moved here in South Africa, did you have any of those like, realizations when you, like culturally, I guess, when you got here?
Yeah, actually, I found it really interesting that people can have wrong opinions and stand so strongly about it.
Wrong as in it's not like, dude, like there's a fact, and you're trying to tell me this is not a fact. It's a fact, man.
Yeah, they'll defend their opinion like it's fact. And I do find, I don't say it's like American culture, but just being argumentative about your opinion is just promoted, I think. It's seen as, you feel strongly about it and whatever. And even though it's completely wrong, it's like the fact says, the earth is dying, climate change is real. Nah, I don't care. There's like, nah, it's fake. It's fake news or whatever you want to call it. But, they defend, I don't know, just an opinion that's not correct.
Yeah, opinion, that the foundation of that opinion is based off of lies, like things that are not true. That's what's so wild.
Yeah.
So it's so deep rooted I think it's really deep rooted in our culture because Americans have always gotten what we want. Whether that's, we're going to go take over, this chunk of land across the sea.
Right.
Or go bomb some countries and not have any repercussions for
manipulate, basically do a lot of that political manipulation for foreign affairs and all that stuff. It's wild. Yeah, so now obviously you're in Boulder doing stuff with the Colorado Carbon Fund, and tell kind of that whole story of how that even came about, because it's pretty unique, I think. Yeah,
so to start, my girlfriend and I were in Vermont, and we had intended to move out west somewhere after she graduated. Weren't really sure where that would be. So we kind of just had a list of places that we wanted to check out. And we went on a big road trip for about 3 months. Boulder was the first stop. And during that time, I'd actually wanted to start a podcast myself. Nice. So I went out, I bought some of the gear, and I had kind of done some research on who I wanted to interview and such. And when I was in Boulder, during that first week, I had connected with Brad Smith of Boulder County. He's one of the sustainability, I think he's a sustainability implementation and communication strategist, something along those lines. And I had connected with some people over there. They connected me with Brad, and I went in and did an interview with him. And we talked about the e-bike program and the Nissan Leaf program and such. And then, recorded the podcast. We left Boulder. We were looking for, a place to live, and went up the coast from Boulder into Utah, and then up the coast of California and up to Oregon and Washington. And then by the time we were in Washington, we had decided that we were going to move back to Boulder.
Yeah.
So when we were in Washington, I had started emailing some people that I had met out here, potential people that I was going to interview for the podcast. And I was just kind of, asking, have you heard of any job openings? Could you point me in the right direction? And Brad Smith sent me an email, the guy that I had interviewed. He sent me one for an internship at NCS. So
what is NCS?
NCS is Natural Capitalism Solutions. It's a nonprofit, only 20 minutes up the road in Longmont, Colorado, started by Hunter Lovins in 2004. It's kind of functioned as a whole bunch of different. It's changed its role over the years, from environmental consulting to housing other nonprofits under its umbrella, to morphing right now into actually an intern program where they're going to support graduate students to go into businesses and offer sustainability consulting for free.
Dude, that's like my dream internship right there. That would have been so sweet.
Yeah, it would have been so sweet. So they've morphed to a whole bunch of through different phases. But I applied to this internship, ended up doing the interview with Isabel over Skype, who's the kind of accounting and general administrative person, as well as an environmental consultant. There's not too many people that work at NCS, so she wears a lot of hats.
Wear a lot of hats, right.
Did the interview with her in Jackson Hole in Wyoming. she hired me on the spot. So then we moved to Boulder with, I at least had an internship. Lily was kind of looking for an internship or a job. She wasn't really sure yet. We set up a bunch of viewings for houses. I think we did 9 in one day. Ended up getting one right away. Like I think it was like the 4th or 5th one. Yeah, got the spot. Moved in the next day. Started my internship at NCS, and that's that involves doing all your normal intern duties, and then which is mostly environmental consulting work for a couple of clients that they had at the time, and then they recommend that you have like a side project of sorts. So they have all these different projects that are kind of just sitting there waiting for someone to pick them up. The Colorado Carbon Fund was one of them at the time. There was someone running it about a year beforehand, but then it just kind of lay dormant. They hadn't hired anyone on to run it. So it was just kind of sitting there. It looked like a pretty good opportunity, even though everyone was telling me, oh, yeah, it's dead. You can't do anything with that. Good luck trying. It's like, I don't know. This has got some potential to it.
All these haters.
Yeah, so I kind of dug into that a little bit and ended up getting really interested by it. So then I wrote a business plan, and then I pitched it to the NCS team. I got hired. They thought my business plan was, I guess, up to par. It was definitely ambitious. It's an ambitious business plan.
Why would he not be ambitious? You gotta shoot high. High.
So yeah, I shot high. I got the job, and now I've been running the CCF since about late October, early November of 2017. So we're about 7 months in right now. And it's going really well.
That's awesome. Yeah. And what is the connection exactly between CCF and Natural Capital Solutions? Is is the Carbon Fund, I guess, owned by Natural Capital?
So they're a fiscal sponsor of the Colorado Carbon Fund. So Natural Capitalism Solutions has the 501c3, charitable status, and then we are a project of NatCap. So we can use their nonprofit status and kind of operate as our own little entity. They have a variety of other organizations that do that as well under them.
Right. Okay, that's sick.
Yeah, so it's great to have, the connections of NCS, especially Hunter. She is an awesome public speaker, specifically. She's very inspirational and can talk to anybody about anything and get them all jazzed up. Yeah, she'll get you excited for sure.
Yeah, it needs a little boost, You get working in a house remotely or whatever all day. Having some people to kind of light a fire under your ass would be nice.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a great perk of the CCF as well. Like if I'm writing a proposal for a business of sorts, well, you can go and meet Hunter, or she could speak at an event that you have.
Right. It's like an asset, pretty much.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're actually hosting this big event in July, July 24th, aligned with Outdoor Retailer. And
that's right. Yeah. Okay, I'll be there too. Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, it's called the Green Industry Fair. So it's going to be connecting the cannabis industry with the outdoor retail industry, and the CCF's kind of going to be the focal point of that.
That's so great.
The whole idea that got that really going was talking with an event planning company, and they had kind of asked, well, if we host an event, can Hunter speak?
Okay.
Well, yeah, she can, of course.
Right. I'll definitely have to make that. How like Colorado to do like a combo event with the outdoor industry and weed. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's so funny.
So I don't know what it's going to be like in there, if you're going to be having to wear a smoke mask or something.
You come in, everybody's blazing up, and you're like, I can't even see my notebook, guys. How am I going to take notes? The square in the room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it was kind of just a random little adventure, but I guess I brought up Brad at Boulder County just because it was just funny to come full circle from him interviewing him at the podcast to him sending me that internship application to now I'm actually working with Boulder County on a couple of projects, and he's, we have conversations often about the projects.
Yeah.
And I just get to pick his brain and such, and now we're kind of working together.
Right. Dude, that's the best. Going from basically like Yeah, like the position of need where you're like, I'm looking for a job, I'm trying to do this and that. So now you're you know, kind of on the same, or you're sitting together, working together, you know, brainstorming, everything like that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool story. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ambitious in the first place to see this project and kind of see the value in carbon offsets, basically, and then take it on your own shoulders to be like, hey, I'm pretty sure I can make this thing work. I feel like a lot of people don't have the like confidence to do that, but it takes a little bit of courage to take up what people are telling you is a losing battle, you know?
Yeah, I guess it does. I just think of it in a way of, you know, what's the worst that can happen?
Right.
What's the other alternative? It just seems like all upside to me.
Right, yeah, it's
You know,
opportunity.
The worst thing is I take a part-time job and then I use that money to pay my rent while I work on some other project. It's just, well, the worst case scenario, I guess, is like living on the street in Boulder in front of the Chautauqua Park, one of the most beautiful places in the country. I mean, it's true. It's you know, like, how bad is it? You know, there are so many worse things in life.
One of the best homeless places, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly.
People are giving. We have a guy, actually, that's on the corner. I don't know if you saw him driving in, but every day that we drive out, he has a sign that he holds. It just says, like, I think it just says "Be happy" and has like a smiley face on it. And he just points at you and gives a thumbs up to like every car. And I think that dude makes bank, honestly. He was wearing a North Face jacket when it was cold. I was like, I don't even have like a puffy jacket yet. It's ridiculous. The Boulder homeless. Columbia. Right, yeah, the Boulder homeless have like better brands than like 95% of other. It's a weird place, man.
Yeah, I think I saw someone wearing Danner boots the other day. Like, what are you doing? I'm saving up for those.
Right. It's such a bizarre place. But yeah, so I guess what kind of projects do you guys get going on? Yeah,
so a couple of different projects that are the main focus right now. I guess 3 projects. Start. So number 1 is the license plate program. So this CCF, the Colorado Carbon Fund, kind of has this really unique niche in the sense that we have a license plate that we sell to individuals in Colorado who offset the emissions of their vehicle. So it's pretty hard to get that license plate, to get the ability to sell that, because it actually has to go through on a bill through the House and actually be passed, you know, by the big government peoples. So the CCF was started back in 2008 by the governor at the time, and because he was in there working with the Senate and Congress and everybody that could make those decisions, was kind of able to just send it right through, I think. Damn. So that's what really provided and still provides the CCF with a sustainable source of income to support certain projects.
That reoccurring revenue.
To get
important in any business model.
Exactly. Yeah, you want to have that sustainable base to keep you afloat.
So when you say that the vehicle offsets its emissions, do you mean like an electric vehicle, or is it through other means, like the household or something like that? Like the household has solar power or something like that.
So what I mean by offsets emissions is it could be either a gas-powered vehicle or an electric vehicle. What you do is if you go on our website, you can type in the MPGs of the vehicle and how far you've driven in the past year, and then that'll calculate the amount of emissions that were released from your vehicle. So gasoline or diesel or any type of liquid fuel specifically releases a certain amount of CO2, methane, and nitrous oxide per gallon that is burned. So when you put in MPGs and the amount of miles you've driven, you can calculate, the system will calculate how many gallons were burned and then convert that to metric tons of carbon equivalent. So you have this number of carbon, and then we have these projects that we've invested to in the past and into the future that sequester or stop a certain amount of carbon emissions from being released into the atmosphere. So when you go on our website and you see your car emitted, say, 5 metric tons of CO2, you offset it which essentially you're paying for a certificate that was produced from a project that quantifiably reduced a certain amount of carbon from the atmosphere.
Okay, so you're balancing out.
Yeah, you're balancing out.
Without owning a Tesla or something like that, right?
Exactly, yeah. So you're balancing out the net emissions in the atmosphere. So your car releases emissions, these projects remove the emissions from the atmosphere. Now, you can also do that with an electric vehicle. In the calculator that we have, it has an MPGE option. And when you buy a car, like a Nissan Leaf, it'll show you the MPGE value, and it'll show you basically, if you say your car uses 10 kilowatt hours or whatever it may be, what that is equivalent to in emissions. So it might be your MPG might be like 96 or 120 miles per gallon, something ridiculous, because electricity is a lot more efficient than actually burning fuel. Like electric cars are 80% efficient in general, while a gas powered car is only 20% efficient. It's just able to use a lot more. It's able to use that energy more effectively. But it can go either way. Yeah. I mean, obviously the goal is having an electric car with solar panels to power that. Then you're net zero. Yeah. Self-sustaining. Exactly.
So one thing that surprised me was actually like how much it costs to offset. Because when you say like metric tons or whatever of emissions, it sounds like an insane amount. And the first thought is like, wow, that must be like really expensive to offset. But it was like pretty reasonable.
Yeah. So the majority of the offsets we have right now are from a methane capture station, and methane over a 100-year period is 34 times more powerful than CO2 at warming the atmosphere. So this methane capture station, essentially, it just collects, the methane being released from organic matter decaying within a landfill. So it's just per dollar a lot more efficient to invest in something like a methane capture station to reduce emissions versus, say, a grassland, for example. Just because you have all that organic matter collected in one space.
It's all going into the atmosphere, basically, right? It's all collecting up there. So why not be as effective as you can, basically, in what you choose to eliminate?
Yeah. So there's kind of both sides to that coin, which is you have the effectiveness of like methane capture, but it doesn't have the impact on land use or the story behind it.
Right.
It's
planting trees is the big one that you see a lot, right?
Yeah, planting trees is great. People understand it. People know that trees absorb carbon from the atmosphere.
Yeah, simple. That's why. That's simple. What makes it work. It's so simple. Plant a tree. Now there's a tree. There wasn't a tree. Now there's a tree. Yeah. That tree absorbing bad stuff. People are like, got it. Thumbs up.
Yeah. And that's actually a misconception that a lot of people should know about
explain it.
The forest credits. Most people think that when they are purchasing a reforestation credit, that trees are actually being planted. In almost 99% of cases, they're just protecting a forest that was already there.
Oh, wow.
That's
interesting.
It's just an easy way around it.
And but interesting.
It's an easy way to sell the story. But we're actually we're trying to work with a company, Renew West, down in Denver, Colorado. And they're doing something entirely different. They're trying to shift the market of forest credits and forest offsets by actually planting trees. And the way that they want to do that is, now, for the past 100 years, forests have not been managed in the way that they should have been. Essentially, you have a national forest, and back, I don't know when they started doing it, but let's say back early, 90s, 80s, 70s, just before the 2000s, they would essentially just contain and stop any fire that would start up and start ripping through the forest. So since they would do that and they didn't manage the forest and actually remove all that tinder, there was just all this tinder and tree density that just built up to an extreme amount. So now when a fire happens in, say, California, like this last year with all these terrible fires, the fire doesn't just rip through the forest, and then the forest doesn't just return 20 years, 30 years later like it's supposed to. And now the fire comes through, and it is so hot and intense that it'll actually burn up all the seed banks, all the microbes,
they're just dead.
All of the life.
Kills the soil.
Totally destroys them. Yeah, just destroys everything on the land. So now it takes 500 to 1,000 years for that forest to return because it's that much more difficult. Because, like a sequoia tree, it needs the fire for the seed to open up and actually produce another sequoia tree. But these fires are so hot, they just burn them all up. So what they're trying to do that's a little different is find areas that are now just the life has just been destroyed in the soil, apply a soil amendment of sorts, and actually go through and plant trees and plant and reforest areas that have been destroyed by these fires due to poor forest management, which is great. That's
right. That's a lot more positive model, basically.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the truest form of additionality. It's your dollar investing in that offset is making that tree grow and sequester carbon from the atmosphere. Right. I totally support that model, and we're looking at different ways that we can partner up and get some investors to start actually buying up some land and producing carbon offsets by planting trees.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I had no idea, because Florida, we don't have a big fire issue in Florida. There's so much damn rain. Every day.
Rain and water.
Every single day.
Every day, right?
Yeah, every single day, 3 to 5 o'clock, gallons and gallons, buckets, man. Buckets of water.
It's raining right now.
Is it really? No surprise there. I wasn't very knowledgeable about fires and we care about hurricanes in Florida. And I come out here and I hear, because of how dry the winter was, I guess, how little snowpack and stuff, that we're at high risk for a really bad fire. Yeah. And I'm like, oh shit, fire's a lot scarier than rain. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. And then now that I hear too that because of poor management, it's killing basically viable land. That's pretty. Mm-hmm. It sucks.
Yeah, it's terrible, and it's only going to get worse because I just read this stat recently that there's going to be 60% less snowpack over the next 30 years.
Jesus.
In Colorado specifically.
Yeah, that's going to hurt the economy, obviously, because of how big skiing and stuff, how much tourism is drawn in because of skiing and stuff.
Just to clarify, snowpack you're referring to is layers of snow?
Yeah, it's the depth of snow that is sitting on the mountain range. Yeah, that's retained, I suppose. I don't know the exact definition of snowpack, but
yeah,
it's decreasing rapidly.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not good.
Yeah, I think it's the amount of snow that sticks around, because then, you go up, you can look at the Rocky Mountains right now, and they're full of snow, and that's what provides all the spring runoff and partially into the summer, and allows all the agriculture on the Front Range and allows all of the trees and ecosystems to kind of get a jump start in the spring, and now they're not going to get that.
Yeah.
In 30 years or so. So, yeah, I mean, how bad the ski season was this year.
That's my first time I could finally try to learn and get better at snowboarding, and most of the days were slushy, and if it wasn't slushy, it was early and icy. Mm-hmm. Still fun because I'm from Florida, so I'm not picky, but, not the best.
Yeah.
Not the best.
So that's going to be on average, every single ski season in 30 years. Because we were at about 40 to 60%. We kind of teeter-tottered between that this year.
Yeah. We did in one of our segments, we talked about Colorado snowpack and stuff in an earlier episode, I think, during the winter. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the projects. I have another one.
Oh, yeah. Keep going. Yeah.
So another one, talking about decreasing snowpack, this is kind of related to water and carbon, is we're just kind of getting started on this, but we've partnered up with Boulder County, MADAG, the NRCS, which is the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and Slow Money, and CSU to work on this project to figure out how do we get farmers to adopt regenerative practices. And so what do you mean by that? By regenerative practice, I mean, instead of destroying the land or releasing carbon into the atmosphere due to certain practices, or using excessive amounts of water, or being really resilient to drought or rapid temperature changes, actually using practices that make the soil and the crop more resilient to weather, water use, and also absorb carbon into the soil versus release it. So it's actually been said that a third of atmospheric carbon right now floating around is due to the invention of the plow.
What? Holy shit.
So when, the frontier was essentially just torn up and turned into cropland over the past 100 years, when you go through with a plow and essentially expose that soil to the air, the soil organic carbon is then off-gassed and released. And when that happens year after year after year,
huge scale too.
On a huge scale. I mean, the Midwest is enormous.
Yeah, it's all farmland, right? It's pretty much all. Yeah.
It's actually been thought that due to the invention of the plow, it may have prevented us from going into another ice age because it jump-started climate.
That's so crazy.
Yeah,
I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
It's
insane.
The funnest of facts.
Yeah, it's a very fun fact.
Plowed our way out of the ice age.
Plowed our way.
Pretty badass, honestly.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, so regenerative practices, they make you more resilient, essentially, and they absorb carbon. So instead of plowing, if you adopt no-till and use a grain such as kernza, which is a perennial grain, a perennial wheat, versus a traditional, monoculture corn crop that you have to go through and plow every year, it's better for the environment because you're not disturbing the soil. And when you don't disturb the soil, I mean, a whole bunch of things happen. The soil has better structure, so it can infiltrate water at a faster rate. So as you're seeing these intense rainstorms come through and say dump 3 inches of rain in 1 hour, if you go into South Dakota, where actually a lot of these regenerative practices are happening, you can see these two fields side by side because most people split their farms up in square formations. Right. Extreme rain event, you'll see one field covered with just pools of water. You can literally see their soil being washed away into some runoff ditch, and then the guy next door that's been practicing these different practices for usually 3 years is kind of the amount of time that it takes to really shift and see the positive benefits.
Yeah.
That soil could absorb up to 9 inches an hour of water, and that thing will be totally no puddles on it. You could walk around just fine, and it'll actually hold the water for a significant amount of time. You could go out there, 2 weeks later, dig your hand into the soil, get down a few inches, and that'll be moist.
That's so
crazy.
And
it'll be soft, and you should be able to dig your hand into it. You shouldn't need a shovel to go through and plow up this crusty, platey, crumbly, light,
That's
soil
how raised garden beds are, honestly.
Yeah, it's a problem that's happening all over the place. So, yeah, the water infiltration, the water quality. So when you adopt these practices, you don't need the excessive amounts of nitrogen and phosphorus and other, agrochemicals and herbicides and such, because it allows the microbes that actually are supposed to do the work for plants to return to the soil. So kind of the whole way that plants operate is there's all these minerals in the dirt, and whether that be in, different rocks and different soil structure throughout the soil. And plants can't access those minerals. They can't break them down, and they're just not bioavailable. But different fungi and mycorrhizal structures can. So what will happen is those different fungi will break down the minerals and then transfer those to the roots of the plant. And in exchange, the plant will trade carbon with the mycorrhizal network that are below the plants.
Wow.
The fungi will eat the carbon, and it'll then break down and turn into a form that is more permanent and will stay into the soil. So that's essentially how the exchange happens is, minerals go to the plant gives off carbon, and you're essentially just storing sunlight. Right. You're just turning sunlight into soil in a larger, more complicated way. Right. But it's just actually restoring the way that nature intended.
Yeah,
and when
it's
that
developed
happens,
over millions of years, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So when those microbes are actually doing their job, you don't need all the excess phosphorus and nitrogen and all these different herbicides that you typically would. Yeah, because the microbes crowd out all of the different bacteria and different
other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, essentially terrible diseases that can come through and ruin a crop.
Oh, right.
It just creates balance. Like balance on your skin. Like if you go through and use alcohol pads every day, you're not just destroying the bad bacteria, you're destroying the good bacteria.
Right.
So it needs to create balance, and that's what no-tilling essentially does.
So does this work for, or can it work for like any type of crop? Because I was definitely, my dad gardened and stuff, so we're always kind of around it, and tilling was always the first step, right? You gotta loosen the soil up, so you can
of course,
plant shit. If you don't do that, you can't plant anything.
Can't, nope.
That was basically how I always kind of learned it. So, is it limited to like certain types of wheat or whatever, or is it can work for any crop?
To my knowledge, it can work for almost any crop. People are doing this anywhere from a small garden, like in your backyard, to large scale, 10,000 acre, broad acre farms.
Yeah.
You can do it with anything. So no-till is
it'd probably lower your costs too in the long run, especially if you don't have to invest in all those fertilizer or not. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, so that's the whole benefit of it is if you adopt the three main
bottom line
principles. Yeah, exactly. There's three main principles that'll get you there, which is cover cropping, no-till, and rotating your crops. So instead of just doing corn, soybean, soybean every other year, you do a diverse rotation. So you could do a 5-year rotation that is never the same, which will essentially trick all of the different pests that could come in and different diseases that could destroy your crop, because they can actually learn the rotation, and then their seeds or their eggs and such will actually change,
follow
the crop. So if you adopt those three practices, for the first 3 years you're going to have what's called the no-till penalty.
Okay, there's a transitional period.
There's a small transitional period where you're going to see anywhere from around 10 to 15% less yield for about 3 years. But after that...
Yeah, it's not a super big price to pay, honestly. I thought it would have been higher.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking... Farmers are on pretty thin margins most of the time. So that can be the difference, is the 10 to 15%. But if you can eat that cost for 3 years, after that, you're going to see yields that are just as good or slightly better. We're seeing mostly...
and lower costs, so yeah.
But yeah, that's the key piece, is you're getting yields that are essentially the same, but your cost, you might have a third of the cost that you once had, because you're not driving your tractor out there 5 different times to spray all those herbicides, to spray the phosphorus, to spray the nitrogen, and essentially run up your bills, because that's what's most expensive usually is the different agrochemicals.
Labor hours.
Out there. Labor hours.
Machine wear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah,
dude, that's what gets stupid, man. We are so stupid. The ideas that develop and like become the common practices, why does it seem like so often it's the dumbest shit? Like, we could have probably been a lot further ahead in like electric cars as well if it weren't for, oil industries kind of pushing down.
Yeah. It's all about money. It is. If we're going to make money doing this, we have to suppress whatever's going on over here. And it's probably very, very similar. So one project, the project that we're working on itself, is calculating the amount of carbon that is being sequestered depending on the practice that the farmer is implementing, and then actually verifying that carbon and then selling that as a carbon offset. So
that's pretty cool.
Say we go in and we give a farmer $1,000 to start cover cropping and no-tilling their crops. We can use a tool called the Comet Planner, which was developed by CSU, the NRCS, and the USDA to calculate the amount of carbon that was sequestered due to the no-till and cover cropping, and then actually get that verified. That's kind of the next big hurdle that we're we're struggling with right now is figuring out how we want to go about verifying that the carbon is in the ground and that it will stay in the ground, that the farmer will continue these practices and such. And then selling that as a carbon offset. I mean, to me, it sounds like the future of the carbon market.
That's a good story too, man.
It's tangible. People can go there. They can meet the farmer. They can eat food. They can eat the carbon that was sequestered by those practices. And it's just really, really easily understood. Most
it is.
People don't understand methane capture. People understand that your food is grown on a farm.
Right.
It's so basic.
Simple.
It takes us to something so essential to life too.
Yeah.
And then on the water side of it, which is, as we just talked about the snowpack decreasing, if you take your soil from 2% soil organic matter to 5% soil organic matter, which in the numbers that we're seeing would only take 5 to 6 years of these practices, you can double the ability of your soil to retain water. It's a no-brainer. Now you have less cost on the water side too, especially with water rights and water leases being an ever-increasing issue on the front range with less water.
It's not just here, but obviously like across the country there's water issues. Damn.
It's everywhere. So this seems like a really hands-on, down-to-earth solution.
Yeah, and it contributes to so many different things too. That's what's awesome about it.
Yeah, and then we're even thinking about down the line, once this is up and really running by next year, throwing it on the blockchain.
Nice.
Making it sexy, making it modern.
Right. That's tight.
And it'll solve a lot of the inefficiencies in the market right now. For example, right now when you have an account with the Climate Action Reserve and they're holding your carbon offsets and then you go to retire them, they charge you to have an account every year and they charge you to retire every offset. It's just a bank just sitting there collecting money just to have a couple of numbers on their books.
Yeah.
Well, they're on the blockchain and now we don't have to worry about that. And that every carbon offset that happened is actually retired and it's not being double counted. So there's actually a few different organizations out there already doing that. So thankfully when we hop in, it'll already all be set up. Won't have to worry about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That was a technology that, when it blew up and everybody's investing in it and stuff, but most of the people didn't understand what the utility in, blockchain technology was. Why am I investing in all these different cryptocurrencies and so forth, right? But why I left some money in it is because there's real value and that can come and will come and will continue to be explored in that. So it's pretty cool to hear that. I guess it's already kind of being used in a way to cut out, wasteful middle men.
Yeah.
I guess.
Let's get more dollars to the projects.
Right.
Essentially, let's just make the system more efficient.
Yeah.
Because that's ultimately, that's how you're going to remove more carbon from the atmosphere. So that's the goal. We actually have one more project.
Yeah, no, go. Keep going.
All right. So this next project that we're working on, it's taking the competition out of the energy industry. So right now, essentially, the energy efficiency engineers and different companies out there, the solar distributors and wind providers and carbon offset companies are all competing for the same clients. They're all competing for people that want to reduce their emissions, reduce their energy use, etc. Essentially, whoever gets to that client first can win that battle, whether it's carbon offsetting or putting solar on their roof or being more energy efficient. Historically, carbon offsets were way cheaper than solar to actually reduce your net emissions. But now solar is actually at the same price and even cheaper, not than carbon offsets, but than energy efficiency, which is kind of a weird situation to be in, right? It's like, we can invest in energy efficiency, LED bulbs and stuff, or we can just throw a ton of panels on our roof to compensate, and that'll actually get you a better ROI in some areas in the country, depending on how cheap you can get your panels.
Right. I guess it's more of an upfront cost with those, right?
Well, much more of an upfront cost. But what we are doing is we're actually partnering up with Boulder EE, which is Boulder Energy Engineers, and Namaste Solar. And we are going to be offering clients, mostly commercial to start, possibly residential. We're just trying to find a scalable way to do it, and offer them a package where they can increase or decrease their energy usage through energy efficiency, install solar on their roof, say 80% of the 100% capacity that you can put on your roof or backyard, and then carbon offset the rest of your usage. So actually creating this funnel where people are going through and doing it the right way and reducing their carbon emissions the right way. Starts with energy efficiency. You then install renewables. You should then carbon offset the things that aren't really reasonable to change, like your natural gas or your gas-powered car for now, because it's too expensive for most people to shift over. So the package is essentially just going to be you're 100% neutral from the start of when you enact this service and enact this contract, except the allocation of where you're receiving your different carbon benefits shifts over the years. So say the first year,
broken up,
you're talking 70% offsets, 20% efficiency, 10% solar. Then you're shifting to 40% offsets, 30% efficiency, 30% solar. And you just slowly shift down until you're using less offsets, ideally maximum solar, and maximize your efficiency.
Right.
And that's going to be different for every client, depending on whether they have a ton of roof space. Maybe they're in the city and they're going to use mostly carbon offsets. Maybe they are in the country and they want to have a huge solar array and actually start selling their energy to their neighbors and such. But essentially, it's just a one-stop shop. We'll set up all the contracts. If you need a new HVAC system, we got your guy over here. If you need to install more solar capacity, we have your solar provider here. And we're just creating a one-stop shop service to do carbon neutrality the right way.
Right, yeah.
Nobody else is
doing this.
It's like a
holistic approach. Yeah, I love that, because it's, people, like you said, that are in competition could be cutting each other's throats, are deciding rather like, well, we're working towards the same shit, so let's figure out how to kind of maximize our effectiveness.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and that's just... Yeah, it just came down to a business decision too. And now I'm competing with solar and energy efficiency, which is hard to compete with because that's really what you should be doing. You shouldn't always be using carbon offsets as a crutch to keep emitting into the atmosphere.
Right. And that's like you said, to make up for what's like kind of unavoidable with or unpractical maybe.
Yeah. So really just trying to do it in the right way. And I think it's going to make a lot of sense to people getting involved with this too. And we're going to come out with a certification of sorts that you can receive by actually going through with this. And I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's going to put a lot of these other certifications to shame.
Yeah, I think so too.
Honestly.
Yeah. Or hopefully inspire them, right? To step their game up, man. Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
So hoping to get some commercial clients on board within the next year and give it a good, test run, kind of iron out the kinks, start in Colorado, ideally then have a model that can then scale. A new organization we'd have to create some type of a top tier organization since right now all the companies involved are just located in Colorado and only operate within Colorado, which is kind of another neat feature.
Yeah, just another thing making Colorado awesome.
Yeah, exactly. just stepping it up.
Keep piling on what makes
the
reasons. Yeah.
There are many reasons.
Well, that's sick, man. I mean, yeah, all those projects, it sounds like you guys are you're definitely heading them in the right direction and being ambitious, like you said, coming up with new ideas of how to approach the problems, which is what's great. But we're going to transition now to trying out these 2 truths and a lie.
Okay. So what does this involve?
So this, I'll let Avinash explain.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So basically, we're going to give you 3 facts, right? And this is how the game's played. One of the 3 facts is actually a lie, and you're supposed to kind of figure out which one is not true of those 3 facts.
Oh man, here we go.
3 rounds to figure out, which one's false.
Yeah.
Essentially. All right, for round one, here are your 3 facts. The first fact is there are currently no national limits on carbon pollution from power plants. All right. Your second fact is every dollar invested into clean energy creates approximately 3 times as many jobs as the same dollar invested into fossil fuels. And then the third fact is the clean coal industry is growing by 37% every year and provides safe, clean energy.
I'm going to go with the third one is false.
Walk us through. I shouldn't have reacted. I definitely...
No, you did not. You did not give that one away. I was going to
say, you probably know.
That one
I made
was pretty
a pretty
obvious.
big face.
Yeah, I don't... I mean, I don't think the coal industry is growing at all. And what was the last part of it? That it provides
safe and clean energy?
Yeah, no, it doesn't provide clean energy. You're burning coal. I mean,
it's called clean coal.
Yeah, you can call it whatever you want. Throw a scrubber on it, whatever. You're still burning coal. Just destroying all those dead dinosaurs. It's really an ethical issue, you know?
Fantastic wording. They're really clever with that.
Yes. All right. Well, proud of the round one there.
Yeah, round one, pretty good.
How many rounds are we playing here?
That's 2 out of 3.
Rounds.
Yeah, cool.
I'll let Colin do round 2, actually.
What we'll do, too, is if you get 2 out of 3 right, we'll do a little donation to the Carbon Fund.
Oh,
to make it interesting.
Good to hear. All right, pressure's on.
All right, so round 2 here. The first fact. Power plants account for almost 40% of U.S. carbon dioxide emissions from energy. Fact number 2. Boulder remains committed to the Paris Climate Agreement and is at the forefront of transitioning to 100% clean energy. And lastly, Boulder is rated as the cleanest U.S. city for ozone air pollution by the American Lung Association.
I'm going to say the third one is false.
So walk us through...
Well, I know that fracking is a huge problem around here.
Really?
Especially with the upcoming bill. They want to put a limit on how far a new fracking facility or drilling station has to be from the nearest residential home, or it may be businesses as well. Not sure the specifics, but they want to make it 2,500 feet. Because right now I think it's 1,000 feet. Because it has some pretty drastic health effects.
I didn't even realize there was fracking out here, honestly.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of fracking. They put up these big walls and actually hide where the drilling area is. It just looks like a building from far away. You don't even know that fracking's happening in there. But you can see the ozone if you hike up Green Mountain or into Chautauqua, and then you look into the valley. It's hazy some days. Like, I was riding my bike.
I was thinking it was fires or something on hazy days. I don't know.
Some days it is. I mean, there definitely, is smoke that rolls in.
Yeah, I guess it depends. Yeah.
Yeah, I was riding my bike with my friend Peter a couple weeks ago, and we're getting up to the top of Flagstaff, and it's a pretty hard ride, and we're both, like, coughing a little bit. I'm like, what is up with this? Is it the altitude? Like, I've never been coughing before after exercise. Usually I feel pretty good, and he's just like, that's just exercise cough. I'm like, what the hell is exercise cough? I've never heard of that. Cough. He grew up here, and that's always been a normal thing.
Huh.
Yeah, you work out hard and you get the exercise cough. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's just not the way it's supposed to be. So was I right on that one, or you never confirmed?
Yeah, you were totally right.
Okay.
Actually.
Damn.
So
Nice.
Gotcha.
That was impressive.
2 out of 3.
You want to play the third round?
Yeah.
Sure. Let's do it.
All right. So here's
double or nothing on the donation, right?
Yeah, double or nothing.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be a penny. We didn't tell you how much, so we're not.
Sorry.
I'm kidding. I'll do a personal donation, actually.
All right. The first fact is Boulder emits nearly 1.6 million metric tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere each year. And then the second fact is the average American household uses about 900 kilowatts per month. And the third fact is the average home in Boulder uses 11% more electricity than the national average.
That was, I think, kilowatt hours, right?
Or kilowatt hours, yeah. Sorry. I can't read.
You're good.
This is a tricky one. I'm going to go with, I'm just not sure how much carbon is being emitted by Boulder, the city of Boulder. I would expect there to be more emissions from people in Boulder. I feel like people just have a little more money and are maybe a little more careless about leaving their lights on. I'm going to go with number 2. The 900 kilowatt hours is not the average usage.
That's actually a fact. The made-up one is the average home in Boulder uses 11% more electricity. It's actually, they use less electricity in Boulder. Yeah.
Did you see how much less? Just out of curiosity.
11%.
Oh, it was 11. All right, gotcha.
Fact.
Cool. That's interesting. I wonder if we just have more efficient homes, or maybe my thinking was wrong there.
Right.
They have more money, so they have more efficient homes. They are not more reckless. Maybe they are more reckless. They're just that much more efficient.
That's honestly probably it. That's probably the logic there. Nice. Well, yeah, you got 2 out of 3 for sure. So I'll be making a donation from my pocket because ALDA doesn't have money. Cough, cough.
Thanks, Colin. Appreciate it.
Well, you're doing cool stuff, I'll happily support that.
Same.
But yeah, so that was fun.
That was fun.
I like those. The truths and the lie are always great. But to close it out, there's basically a couple questions that we always like to ask off the cuff and kind of get your impromptu response on. And they're like easier things, but you want to kick off with the first one?
Yeah. So the first question is, how would you explain sustainability to a 3-year-old?
See, that's kind of the problem, is I'm shifting from my mindset from sustainability to regeneration, because sustainability isn't necessarily the best way to put it. But the way I would describe it to a 3-year-old is...
Could be 4 or 5 as well,
4 or 5-year-old, yeah. But we'll stick with a 3-year-old.
Stick with 3, okay.
Is I would probably take them outside to say they're like my 3-year-old, and we go into the backyard, and I would take them out to the garden, and I would rip up some weeds and spray some herbicide like glyphosate killer.
Kid.
So I would rip up the weeds. I would spray it on the dirt, and then right next to it, I'd rip up some other weeds and just leave it alone. And I would say, look, this is the earth right now, the one that I sprayed the chemical on, and then the one that I had just left it, I would say, this is how the way the earth is supposed to be. And then we would go inside. The kid 3-year-old would probably forget about it for a little while. And then we go back out a week later, and they would look at those 2 little spots, and I would say, look what happened. The one where I sprayed, there'd be nothing there. But the one that I ripped up the weeds would have been totally replenished and green. Right. And I would just explain, this is the way that people are acting right now, because they're not thinking about their actions, and this is the way that we could be acting.
That's really good.
Yeah, I like that. Wow.
Yeah, I think you're the first one that actually tied it to like a tangible kind of example and said, I'd show them something. Because I think you learn a lot better that way, especially a 3-year-old.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to keep their attention for more than 10 seconds. But if you have them in the back ripping up weeds, I think
they stop paying attention. You spray them in the face with a herbicide a little bit. Say, hey, look over here. That was a good one. So the next one that we kind of like to ask is, what would be like one kind of easy like sustainability tip that you would recommend people try, or something that you do in your own life maybe that you want to throw out there?
If I were to have one sustainability tip, it would not be in the conventional sense of turn your lights off, compost, anything like that. It would just be to try to spend more time outside.
Yeah.
Whether it's just going for a walk, going on a big epic hike, going on a bike ride. Maybe you start commuting to work by riding your bike or walking or whatever it may be. I think just spending a little bit more time outside is what's going to make you ultimately change some of those deep-rooted habits that you have that are harming that place. Because if you're more connected with it, you're going to care about it a little more. So I think 100%. It maybe starts with the principle of caring about it and building that connection before you start just having this, habit of composting that doesn't mean anything to you because you're not connected with what it's positively affecting.
Right, the why you're doing it. You gotta be connected with the why.
It's gotta be the why. Yeah. It's always the why, not the what.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. That totally like my philosophy too is like just like a person, right? If it's a family member on the line or somebody that you don't even know at all, you're a lot more likely to try to protect your loved one, right? And if you love the earth, you're gonna do something to try and protect it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm 100% with you there.
Yeah. Do we have any more ones?
Yeah. What's your most wasteful habit that you're willing to admit to?
I'm really bad at sorting my recycling. I need to get better at that. I'm not sure which plastics I can recycle and what I can't sometimes.
Oh yeah, that is a local thing too, depending on our or whatever facility.
Yeah, what the facility can handle. So that's one thing I definitely need to educate myself on a little more. If when I'm in doubt, I just throw it in there. I'm like, oh well, they'll sort it out.
Yeah, that's true.
But if I threw it into the landfill, I know where it's definitely going. Yeah. So yeah, that's my most wasteful habit for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not even that bad.
It's pretty, I don't know.
Dude, I knew people in college that hadn't even, they didn't recycle, period. They just didn't. Ugh. I was like, what, you didn't know it existed? Or what do you mean? They're like, we didn't do it. I was like, what do you mean? I don't know what you mean you don't do it. That's how you do it. That's how you throw stuff. You don't just throw it all. Yeah. Blew my mind. Mm-hmm. Sorry, that just so really crazy. Frustrated me out of nowhere. I was like, how did I know? How did some of my best friends not even know?
It's hard to educate everyone on that. It's just not a thing everywhere, I mean, people in Texas coming up here and what the hell? I got 3 trash cans to throw things in.
Yeah, it's like, all right, dude, there's pictures on them. You'll be fine.
Exactly. There's 3 trash cans? Why?
Compost.
Yeah, recycling, compost, and landfill.
I'm only used to trash and recycling, so I wouldn't know what to do with the compost one.
We always had a paper versus plastic and glass and metal back in Gainesville. Oh, so cool. I thought it was interesting that you put it all in one bin here. I was like, that makes it a little easier, I guess. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, you guys must have a bunch of methane out there if you're not composting.
Yeah. Gotta go get after that methane.
Seriously.
Well, is that it? Is that all we got?
I think that wraps up our whole thing.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on our podcast.
Yeah. And I guess last, do you have Colorado Carbon Fund's social media and stuff like that to plug? We can always add it later too.
Yeah. You can find CCF at coloradocarbonfund.org or coloradocarbonfund.com. And also on Facebook, if you just search it, our page will come right up.
Perfect.
But if you go on our website, you can subscribe to our newsletter, and we're in the process of putting together an editorial calendar to be more consistent.
Gotta get that content
in our newsletters. So yeah, you should go on there, sign up, and you'll get all the latest info on those projects that I talked about.
That's great. And I guess the very last thing to close out on. Any more general, just closing thoughts that you have or things that you want to put out there? Philosophies, life lessons, poems,
life lessons. I read this great book, Endurance. I don't know if you've ever read that by Alfred Lansing, but
it's going in the journal.
There's this one quote by Ernest Shackleton, which lately has just been in my head a little bit more as I've been working a lot on this project and on these different projects and trying to see, some results. Just remind myself of the small wins, but it's by endurance we conquer, and just really reminding myself that it's every day, just taking one little step upwards, and then looking back a year later can be a huge difference in your life. I mean, even a year ago, almost today, actually today, a year ago today, was our last day in our apartment that we had in Vermont. And just thinking of all the things that have happened since then, like huge road trip, moved to Boulder, had an internship, been working the CCF, met all these amazing people, and just been able to learn a lot over the past year. And you don't really see it in the moment that it's happening. You almost never see it in the moment that it's happening.
Right.
But when you look back on it and really zoom out, it just gives you a good perspective. So I just got to keep grinding, have the endurance, and see where this can go. And I'm excited about it. I'm just got to put my head down and work.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
Just to remember to zoom out and see where you've come from and see the trajectory that you're on. I think that's really important.
Perfect. Well, on that note, thanks again, Brandon, for joining us. And remember, everybody, protect your wild. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in this week. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. And remember, if you want to hear more interviews and help us grow and get better, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your buddies, your pals and your friends. Otherwise, check out our website at aldalifestyle.com to see what else we got going on. And we'll catch you again next Tuesday.